Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is idzox, and today I thought we would do something new and exciting. How about a shields tier list? Doesn't get much nerdier than this. So it turns out that there's 19 shields in the game, and I think a lot of them are not very good though. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the stats for each one, starting with the buckler. So the buckler is available at the very beginning of the game. It's got 16 durability, -4 max fatigue, 10 melee defense, 5 range defense. It's usable, but the only time I'll use the buckler is if I need to put a guy in the front line. He doesn't have adrenaline, and he doesn't have a lot of armor, and I literally have nothing better, and he doesn't have any melee defense. It's not as bad as people think. Oh, by the way, I want to say I'm going to rate the shields not on an absolute strength basis, okay? But I'm going to rate them based on their overall utility. Like, how often are they available? How useful are they in general? And how expensive are they? So, you know, the best shield in the game is going to be the Coffin Shield, but it's really hard to get. You don't get it until the very end of the game. Most people don't even play that late. So from that perspective, it's not really that useful. Okay. Let's go to the next one. The wooden skirmisher shield. This is the light goblin shield. It's a little bit better than the buckler in terms of its stats, but you can't knock back. By the way, the buckler, I forget to say, the fact that you can't shield wall with it is a problem. So this shield is pretty terrible. By the time you're fighting goblins, you're going to have much better stuff available. So that's pretty useless. And I'm going to put this one down here too. It's terrible as well. You can see it's got more of a fatigue penalty. The extra 4 durability doesn't really do much for you. So I would say this shield is actually better than this one. The old wooden shield, the barbarians use this one. It's okay if I have nothing else. If I'm in the north in the beginning of a campaign and I have nothing else, I'll use this one. It's not amazing. The problem with it is that it breaks too easily. So I'll put it above the buckler though. The ancient auxiliary shield, not very good. Same problem as this one, just doesn't have enough durability. I mean, they're almost the same thing, so we'll put them right next to each other. Now we're finally getting to pretty good shields here. The wooden shield is a very, very useful shield. It's inexpensive, it's cheap, it has a reasonable amount of durability. Like, a lot of times you can take like one shot to it before it breaks. So this to me is the best shield that we have so far. I might even put it in A tier. We'll see. The heavy metal shield, kind of an interesting shield. It's huge, but it doesn't give you a ton of defense. It gives you the same amount of defense as the wooden shield, but a ton of durability, which sounds great for a tank, except for the fact that your tank is going to be shield walling over and over again, and it's going to cost you an extra 5 fatigue. So unless you have like a farmhand tank, I don't think this shield is very useful. It's probably, I'd put it probably there, a little bit better than the buckler. The feral shield is an interesting shield. It's comparable to this shield, the Adarga shield. I used to use it before I got better at the game. The biggest problem with both of these shields is they just break too easily. I mean, you get hit with one javelin and the shield is broken, and then your guy is vulnerable. I'm going to put it right here. The Adarga shield is, I think I'll probably put it here just because you can actually buy it. It's more readily available. So if I'm starting in the south, a lot of times we'll start with Adarga shields. They're not bad, but by the time you start like taking raider camps, you don't want to use them anymore because of javelins and guys who have axes. These shields break like nothing. I think, you know what, I'll put it above here just because it's readily available. The Ancient Coffin Shield is the Legionary Shield. The stats on it are pretty good. It's comparable to the Adarga Shield in terms of the defense you get out of it, but, you know, it has the same durability problem. A little bit more of a fatigue penalty. So overall, it's not very useful. By the time I'm fighting legionaries, it's, you know, I have better stuff available. Okay, so I'm going to put it lower than these shields, even though it's a little bit better, just because by the time you get it, it's not very impactful. The Worn Kite Shield is got stats that are comparable to the Kite Shield, except you get a little bit less range defense. But nice amount of durability, 40. This is a pretty good shield. Probably even better than the small shield. You know, I'm a big fan of durability on shields because the last thing you want to do is give a shield to a guy and then get it broken at the beginning of a fight. Most of the time when my shield guys die, it's because their shield gets broken. So just think about that. And pretty much all of these shields have crappy durability, including the small shield. It's a step up from most of this other stuff, but this is the first kind of pretty good shield that we've had so far. Next up, the Kite Shield. The Kite Shield for me is the quintessential shield. 48 durability, very nice. The fatigue penalty is a little bit high, but it's not crazy. Minus 16, and you just get a ton of range defense. This is pretty much my bread and butter for my front line when I take fights at night. If I'm taking camps at night, nomad camps, brigand raider camps, pretty much I want to have enough guys with kite shields, ideally, that we nullify the brigand marksmen or the nomad archers. And these shields, they protect your backline quite a bit too. They're readily available. They're cheap. In any campaign, if you go to an armor, you can usually pick up one of these for like 320 crowns. So I think it's the best shield in the game. Next up, we have the Limworm Shield. This is like a godlike shield. It's like a souped up version of the Kite Shield. So it's amazing, but you know, by the time you're fighting Limworms, for most people the campaign is pretty much over. So for that reason, it even though it's great, it's not really that useful. The Sipar Shield is a great shield. The biggest problem with it is the fatigue penalty. Minus 18 fatigue is a lot. But if you compare it to the Kite Shield, these are readily available in the south. You get an extra 3 melee defense. You get 7 less range defense. So there are certain fights, you know, if I'm taking melee fights, I would rather have a Sipar Shield than a Kite Shield. But, you know, the fatigue penalty is something you need to keep in mind. Like if I have like a nice farmhand, I'll give him a Sipar Shield. So it's very, very good. Another nice thing about the Sipar Shield is the 60 durability is enough that you maybe don't have to take Shield Expert. Like my frontliners, I typically give them in most fights Kite Shields with Shield Expert. If I'm fighting beasts and if I have heater shields, I'll use heater shields. Certain fights, I'll use heater shields. But if I don't have heater shields, I'll use Sipar shields as long as my guys can handle the fatigue penalty. If they can't, maybe I'll just use a small shield. Like if I'm fighting beasts and I don't have any Sipar shields or Kite shields, I'll just use a small wooden shield, because you only get minus 10 fatigue penalty versus 16 for the Kite Shield. The decayed heater shield, you get this on some wider gangers, you get it on some fallen heroes. It's a great shield. It's got 24 durability, which is not great, but if you compare it to the small wooden shield, it's the same thing. Okay, so it's fairly good. It's nice because it's easy to get, and like if you're fighting beasts, you don't need to worry about the fact that it only has 24 durability. Okay, I definitely wouldn't use it against orcs or against raiders or nomads, but it's a very useful shield. Now we got the heater shield. It's another great shield. I think I'll probably will put it into S, just because the same reason as the Kite Shield. It's very useful in certain fights. It's inexpensive. You can get it in any armor for maybe 250, 300 crowns. The biggest problem with the heater shield is you don't want to use it in certain fights. If you're taking raider camps, I wouldn't use the heater shield unless I didn't have a better option. You do get 32 durability versus 24, so it is an upgrade versus the wooden shield. But the biggest problem, these shields, even if you have shield expert, they get broken pretty easily by orcs, by raiders, by nomads. So just be careful of how you use it. The living tree shield is it's a very good shield that you craft from scrats. You can see it's kind of like a souped up heater shield with more durability, plus it recovers 20 durability every turn, a little bit less fatigue. So it's a great shield, but I mean, it's not really that useful in most campaigns because most of the time you never get one. They're very, very hard to get. This ancient tower shield is some legionaries have this, and then honor guards. It gives you a lot of defense, 20 melee defense and 20 range defense. That's a lot. 24 durability is not that good though, and then minus 20 is really the biggest problem. So another one of these shields that's not really that useful. By the time I'm fighting legionaries, I probably have something better that I can give them. This durability penalty really makes the shield kind of stink, in my opinion. And then the Kraken shield, this is statistically the best shield in the game, but you're not going to get it very often. So that seems pretty good. I think I might actually bump this up a little bit to A tier, just because of how, I can get this the first town in the game, and it's really good for a while. It's really good against thugs. It's okay against raiders if you're careful. So that looks pretty good. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you have any comments or suggestions for other types of content that you want me to make. Thank you.